So you're playing Genshin, you're doing some 10 pulls, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Rosaria. Now, what do you get with Rosaria besides a quote-unquote none? Well, Rosaria is a polearm wielding cryo user, and she is one of, I think, the only character that I can think of without constellations that gives a crit rate buff in her base kit. And in this video, we're going to look at how to use Rosaria and some of the old niche teams that Rosaria was ran in. Now, real quick, let's touch on how her kit works. Rosaria does have one of the fastest normal or auto attacks for any polearm user, so you can use that in kind of a niche team. But right now, we're just going to look at her skill, which is going to make you blink behind an opponent, dealing an instance of cryo damage. Now, this blinking does not work on larger enemies like ruin guards and bosses, things like that, right? So you do have to kind of position yourself a little bit better whenever you're using her E if you wanted to activate a certain passive, which that passive is going to give her a crit rate buff if you hit an opponent from behind with her E. So you can still do it on the larger mobs, you just have to make sure that you're positioning yourself a little bit better because you won't blink to behind them. All in all, that's really all that her E does. Instance of cryo damage, blink behind, get extra crit rate, deal cryo. That's really it. Now her burst is going to be where her main source of utility comes from. It is going to make this giant cryo polearm stick in the ground, pulsating out cryo damage. And it's actually a lot of cryo damage. During this, though, it also activates her other passive, which allows you to share some of her crit rate to your entire team. It is going to share 15%, maxing out a 100% crit rate, with 15% crit rate being shared amongst your team. She doesn't share it to herself, so it's not like you can get to a certain point and then share it to herself to get it up. It is going to share it to everybody but her. So as you can see here, Dia's crit rate is 86.3, and then after we use the burst, it's going to be like 98.3. I don't have quite 100% on Rosaria, but I do have enough that it does increase it by a fair good bit. I think it's 12% here. So you can use Rosaria as a really good cryo applicator for something like in a melt team, where right here we're actually doing it for a plunge Dia team. Rosaria doesn't quite have enough cryo to do it on her own, which is kind of the downside of any cryo character before we got to like Sit Lolly whenever it came to a melt team, is that you had to have multiple cryo characters in your party to do a reliable melt. However, she still can do some melt damage, and you can also make her your melt reactor, where she is going to get the melt reactions, but she can actually do a fair good amount of damage in her own right. Now in this build, we are going to be doing something like a standard emblem set build, where we just want her to have as much energy recharge as she can, using either something like Raiden Signature, or the catch is also a really good option for her. So this is going to be a standard kind of build for a burst damage Rosaria. You can also use Noblesse instead if you want her to be kind of more of a support. Now for the niche stuff, right? Rosaria, like I said, has one of the fastest normal attacks or auto attacks for polearm users in the game. She can do very fast polearm users. She can do very fast autos. Now, something else is that if you have C6, she decreases the physical resistance of enemies that are hit by her burst. So you could do something like a physical damage Rosaria, being where if you have C6 Rosaria and then you have something like C6 Mika, then you can do something like a physical Rosaria where you're doing Superconduct. His kit's going to increase physical damage with the C6. Her kit's going to drop their resistance to physical, and then you can do something like Raiden for your energy, and then also just for the coordinated electro attacks. You can also do like something like Fischl. And then you can do like Lisa with her ulti, with her burst, making them weaker, like shredding defenses, right? So you can do something like this. You do have to put Rosaria on something like Pale Flame instead of one of those other two artifact sets that I said earlier. And actually you can use like Dragon Spine Spear, which is probably a spear that you forgot existed. It was one that we got way back in Dragon Spine, but it actually gives you a physical damage bonus. Now in this, I do instead use a different weapon, a crit rate weapon instead, just to be able to get a crit split, but you can use Dragon Spine Spear in this. Now this is an OG original niche Rosaria team, back when you could run something like physical Fischl, physical Rosaria. Physical damage isn't doing so much now. That's why Eula hasn't been doing so much, but you could probably still make it work. I mean, maybe not necessarily in like the Abyss, but you know, for running around doing whatever, you know, using it in domains, things like that, then you can probably make, you know, use this, make it work. It is fun. Having Rosaria on field is great, and that's fun. You know, there's a lot of people out there that do like Rosaria for different reasons. You know, Lettuce did say that whenever she played Genshin, she liked having Rosaria on the field because she liked to watch her walk. So, you know, there's different reasons that people might want to have on-field Rosaria, and Superconduct Physical Rosaria is one of them. So let me know down below what you think of Rosaria, and that is going to be it for this video. Cookie has green hair, I have green hair, and I'll see you in the next one.